After months in the shop waiting on parts, I finally got my 650 Xchallenge back, and I was able to ride it for the first time in many weeks. And the first ride out was a few miles away and noticed I had a radiator leak. After realizing that replacement radiators were $800 from BMW, I decided to do the repair myself. It seemed a little simple, just find the leaking spot, which is right on the front, having a hole rubbed in it from the plastic ducting. Just scraped it down a little bit. Probably could have used a better tool than this because it turned the fins in, but fins aren't that big of a deal. You can pull those out. And as soon as I got it cleaned up, I dropped a little, basically a brazing compound. It's a little aluminum brazing that I did here, and it worked pretty well. Keeps the water in just fine now. So it looks like this plastic cover is wearing a hole in my radiator, and I can't see any other use of this piece of plastic here, maybe other than structural, maybe, but it's certainly not going to stop any rocks. It's not redirecting air like these fins are, and these fins might actually deflect a rock, or at least take some of the momentum out of it. But these things do nothing except possibly wearing a hole, and it looks like it's deformed a little bit here too. So I'm just going to clip this whole section out and eliminate that from a possibility of wearing through my radiator again. So after a couple of minutes, I pulled out my BMW plastic clippers and clipped out the section that was obviously wearing holes in the radiator, and then simply attached the ducting vents back to the radiator, and it held water. But unfortunately, after I filled it back with water, I noticed that there was oil. That brown sludge. It should be clear because I didn't put anything in there except water, and I noticed that there's oil in my radiator, which means I blew the head gasket because I rode it too long running hot. And my fault, but I was ready to get the thing fixed up. So the next step, got to pull the head. This thing has really been a nightmare. The latest incident after the 4 painful bolts. I was trying to take one of the camshaft sprockets off, this one, and I was trying to see if that thing fit, and it fit in there, and I started pulling it out, and it slipped out of my hand and bounced right down in the engine. So now I'm running a scope down in there to see if I can find. It sounded like it bounced and bounced and bounced and then it fell in a long pit like, is it Lord of the Rings? All you need is a special magnet tool on an extension rod. And you have to drop it another time in there so you can get it straightened out, so you can pull it straight out, because that's the only way to get it out. Most of the time I would rather work on a motorcycle than an automobile. But this bike and the head, pulling the head was quite the procedure. Lots of almost inaccessible bolts. Had to pull a lot more stuff off the bike to be able to get to the bolts than the manual proceeded. I'm pulling the cams here and getting ready to pull the head to be able to replace the head gasket, and it was a pain. I'm not gonna lie. So I'm trying to get a good shot here of, there's actually a threaded nut in there. I believe it's threaded, but I don't know, and I'm not gonna know until I unbolt the rest of the head. But then, and that's supposed to be some kind of adjusting nut right there, and I don't know what that means even, and I don't know how to get a wrench on it. So, but I think to the left of that is the washer that's supposed to come out, but I don't even know how to do that. Maybe I can get a big flat wrench in there and loosen the adjusting bolt that way. I don't know. And the bolt and the nut and the washer that I'm pointing to here is what cost me several hours. It's a really weird design. I'm not sure why BMW made it like this, but the thing that I was pointing to was number 2 and number 1, and it's a hollow bolt with a washer that sits in between the head of the bolt and the head, and the other bolt, number 4, goes through a washer and a lock nut, and then goes through the frame of the bike, and then it goes through the hollow bolt and washer. And I had to make a special tool. Actually, I had to make 2 special tools to get this contraption off the bike, and then I had to tug and pull, and it was a bit of a nightmare. And I say nightmare, it was just a pain in the butt, banging your head against this engineering and not being able to figure out how to actually execute. The manual, although it was pretty complete, only went so far. So you just have to improvise sometimes, and that's what I wound up doing here, is improvising and building tools and prying and, you know, doing everything I could to keep from breaking stuff while I was extracting the head from this motorcycle. And I'm actually getting pretty close to getting the head off here, but it's always, oh, I didn't see that in the manual. I didn't say about, you know, didn't say anything about this bolt. You have to remove this sensor, or you have to remove this plug, or nothing like that. So it's very frustrating having to figure it out. The manual got me pretty close, but you know, still had to improvise along the way. I'd like to say I just wasn't reading everything right, but that's not the case. And about to snatch the head here, and once I get the head off, just clean everything up, and you had to beat it with a hammer first. But the gasket's still on the block, and it's basically a metal gasket that, or a thin piece of metal that's shaped and has holes all around for the ports and the piston, and, you know, oil and water and explosions. And it's a thin sheet of, I guess, aluminum with some Teflon type material attached to it, and had to pull all the Teflon off before you can reinstall the new gasket. So this is like my 3rd week of screwing around with this Stego motorcycle. I'd say it's been a month, but I don't think it's quite been a month. I came and I had the thing partially disassembled at Chris's house, and decided it was going to be in the way for a long time over there, and parts were going to be everywhere. And not just that, Mark's got a frozen basement over here. It's nice and cool. As much light as I need, and he's got a lot of tools that I don't have, and just a lot of space that is really needed. And so I brought the thing over here about 3 weeks ago. A lot of me screwing around, not having the right tools, not being prepared, and getting very frustrated. There's several times that I did not have the tool, or did not, well, yeah, I had to actually make 3 separate tools. Actually, I wound up making a 4th tool to get one of the bolts out. There's all kinds of special tools, and I didn't want to wait on the tools. I didn't want to spend the money. You know, BMW specialty tools, there's always some crap like that. But anyway, I've made the tools, and each time it's just been a struggle. I've spent 4 or 6 hours trying to get one bolt out, and that's happened 4 separate times. 4 separate times. But finally, I got the head off today, and actually I had to borrow another tool But anyway, I want to show you what's going on with this exploded motorcycle in the basement. I was saying it's I'm really lucky. I've got a really good basement here, chock full of tools. And I used to think I had a lot of tools, but my little brother's got a lot. And I mean, I'm not missing that many tools, but the ones that I'm missing, he has got. So. But anyway, I've been describing, that's pretty much, this is the box of stuff that I brought over here. Most of this was disassembled, you know, air box, radiator, seat, fenders, just, you know, a few piddly stuff. And then I've had this stuff scattered all over the basement. Most of this stuff has been here for almost 3 weeks, yeah. And, I mean, it's just kind of a disaster. I think it would have been easier to pull the engine than to pull this head. But I finally got the head pulled off today. And lots of things that the manual didn't tell you had to remove. You had to remove. So, you know, it's just a trial and error thing. Like, why is this thing not coming off? You know, I could hit it with a hammer. And I did. I hit it with this hammer several times. It helped a lot. But, you know, at some point you're like, okay, something's about to break here if I keep hitting it like this. Anyway, I need to get it cleaned up now and get me a new head gasket. And I'm pretty sure this is the culprit, but I'm sure I just thing ran too hot and started leaking oil into the water jacket, and here we are with a mess on our hands. So I'll get this ordered today, and then hopefully maybe after I get the thing back in, I can start putting it back together. It'll take me at least another week to put this thing back together, if I'm lucky. But most likely what's going to happen, is the same thing that always happens, is I start putting it back together and realize I left out a bolt somewhere and have to disassemble it and put the bolt back in. You know, something's always missing, so. But hopefully it won't be too dramatic. And the faster I get it put back together, the better off I am, because I can remember what I took off and when, and right now, but you know, 2 weeks from now, probably not. So that's what I'm gonna do, get all my shit ordered, and we'll get this thing back on the road here within a couple of weeks. That would be ideal. Maybe ride my motorcycle before summer's over. Most of the gasket material seemed to be attached to the head, and this is the bottom of the head, what I pulled off, and I'm using a plastic spatula to scrape the remnants of the material off the head so I can get a good seal with the new head gasket. And you have to be really careful with aluminum heads, and this bike has an aluminum head and an aluminum block, and aluminum is a very soft metal, so you have to be really careful not to gouge the surface. And here I've gotten most of the material off, and now I'm just getting what's left that I can't get off with the plastic spatula. I'm using some 800 grit sandpaper. You got to be careful with this stuff too. You kind of want to sand in one direction to keep from opening up channels for the fluids to pass under the gasket, in between the metal and the gasket. Just another long list of crazy things that are keeping me from getting this motorcycle put back together. Right down there, that is a hollow bolt that pushes a washer out into the head, and another bolt goes in there and tightens it all down. But the problem is I can't get enough space in between that gap to put that washer in there. And this is my solution, is putting the jack in there and spreading the frame. I've got a little bit of distance in there, but not quite enough to get the washer in there. So that's what I'm trying to do right now. See if we can get that done. Had to turn down the stereo to make sure that the cracking I was hearing was not the frame, rather the wood that I've got in there protecting everything. Oh wow, look at that. Slips right in there. Holy crap. That was pretty damn easy. If I can just get this other fucker in there. I got it in there. I'll be damned, that was a whole lot easier than it was getting it out. It was almost impossible to get back in there. I couldn't figure out how to do it without cracking the head, prying on it. And then I noticed the frame had to be moving out when I was tightening that bolt up. I was just going to leave that washer out because I couldn't really see what it was doing other than rubbing up against the head, keeping the head from wearing. And I think what that said is just tight to the frame. So I'm going to tighten this up with my special tool, special huge flathead screwdriver that I ground down. It's a one of 3 special tools I had to make because anyway, now you're going to see the only way to turn this. Actually, take this back. Oh, so I've got the bolt inside that hollow bolt that I was turning, but what I was trying to say is the only way to turn that bolt is it's got like a yeah, that's as far as I can get it. So that's golden. One of the crazy things is that bolt comes out. I'm going to put the diagram here, but that bolt just spins inside that frame, and then this bolt goes inside there, and then I've got another locking bolt that goes on top of that I had to have a special tool for too. So anyway, lots of fun. Actually, I think I'm supposed to lubricate these bolts. Let's find out.